before on different topics, we've always emphasized, please be engaged, especially today, because that's how we will all be able to, inshallah, maximize the session and benefit, okay? So, first question, what is the premise or foundational idea of Western civilization? Like if you were to say, like, what are some foundational ideas in Western society or Western civilization, what is the foundational idea of Western civilization? Any thoughts? And this is where our guests, I think, please, take yourself off mute and you can just shout out, okay? There's someone also on the phone. So whoever that person is, if they can just tell us your name, and please feel free to engage. So what is the premise or foundational idea of Western civilization or society? Any ideas?
Communication.
Okay, communication, okay.
Can I answer the question?
Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Individualism.
Okay, individualism. Mm-hmm. Okay,
Leadership.
what else?
Leadership.
Leadership, okay. Okay, any other ideas? Because again, this is not a presentation on modernity and Western society, but I'm going to try to articulate this in a way or try to present material in a way that's specifically targeted to people who may come from different backgrounds, and which will inshallah then enhance their ability to engage with teachers, of children that are in elementary, middle, and high school. So what other ideas do we have? What is a foundational idea or fundamental premise of Western civilization?
So visual communication.
Visual
and
communication.
hands-on.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
hands-on.
Visual
Yeah.
communication and hands-on. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah. So we have some good input here. Okay, so we go to the next one. What is individual sovereignty? And you can Google this. What is individual sovereignty? Any ideas? And feel free to Google. This is the most difficult question in the slide deck.
Would it be like land of the free, home of the brave type deal? Like we're all about democracy and our individuality and being independent of any other country and any other ideals?
That's definitely partially true. Very good. Let's build on that. Who would like to build on the idea that Haris just mentioned?
It's authority in the decision-making process of the state and the maintenance of order.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So, okay, let me ask.
Individualism, I think the rights they always talk about.
Yeah, very good.
Individual rights.
Individual rights. Very good. Yep. And that's the closest to the answer. Individual rights, okay? And this is where even the first question, what is the foundational idea, premise of Western civilization, goes into this idea of individual sovereignty. Okay, so like if the Soviet Union is now defunct, what was the foundational idea of the Soviet Union? What was their foundational idea?
Communism.
Yeah, communism, but as an idea, how did they articulate it? As an idea. So this is how they articulated it. The Soviet Union said, the individual is not important. It's the state that is sovereign. It is the state that is important, right? And in Western society, it says, no, the state is not that it's unimportant, but it's the individual that's sovereign. And laws are made to govern and protect the rights of the individual. Whereas in the Soviet Union, laws were made and structures were made to protect the rights of the state. So you have the individual is important, and the other system said, no, the state is important. And that's obviously not to say that the West didn't believe in the state, but that in the state functions to protect the rights of the individual, okay? So this is a very important idea to understand living in the modern society, because it goes into how things are structured. So now we go to easier questions, because I will go back to those two, inshallah, as time permits. What are the qualities you want in your child's teacher? Should be very easy, this, inshallah. What qualities do you want your child's teacher to possess?
Intelligent.
Huh?
Intelligent.
Intelligent. Okay, you want them to be intelligent. What else?
Engaging.
I'm sorry, Sister Zahra?
Engaging.
Engaging. Very good. You want them engaging. Excellent. Okay. Go
You
ahead.
want them to have like good communication and good people skills so that they're able to interact with and help your child if your child's first language is not English, let's say.
Okay, very good. You want communication and people skills. What else? Other than the students on here, everything, I think everyone is a parent, and we've gone to parent-teacher conferences. We've engaged with teachers. So what are the qualities you want in your teacher? This is at least something everyone should have thought about.
It looked like kind, committed, connected.
Yeah, committed, connected. Yeah, their ability to connect to the child. I'm sorry, what else?
Engage with each student, individually.
Okay, individual engagement. Very good. Okay, individual engagement. Okay. Any other ideas? Okay, so we can say that we want, if you have a choice, you want your one of the qualities of the teacher to have is to be structured. You want one of the qualities of the teacher to have humor, right? Because obviously, if the teacher has some level of humor, that's going to enhance their ability to communicate and engage. Okay, so, excuse me, sorry. Okay, so this is, we will, so I want you to keep this at the forefront of your mind. What are the qualities you want in your child's teacher? Okay, how should the relationship be between parent and teacher? Between parent and teacher. Now, we're not talking between teacher and student, we're talking about parent and teacher, because the theme for today, the topic for today is parent-teacher engagement and child success. So how should the relationship be between the parent and the teacher?
Professional, open communication.
Professional. Okay, open communication. Okay,
So
what else?
it has to be one where there's communication back and forth, and it's got to be a collaborative process as well. Just because the teacher can't do everything, like the teacher can't help the student without the help of the parent, because there's stuff such as homework that needs to be done at home, which the parent has to get involved in.
Okay, very good. Okay, it should be collaborative. What else? How, also, this is a question, we may not, as parents, have a lot of control over who the teacher is, but we do have control over how we interact or the relationship we have with that teacher. So this is something we should think about. And I want to spend a couple of minutes more on this slide. How should the relationship be between parent and teacher? Any other ideas? Okay, so we have so far, there should be professional, there should be open communication, and there should be a collaborative process. That's what we have, right? Okay. Now, why do teachers in Japan speak or teach from the stage? Like they speak from a stage or podium that's about 12 inches, I think, higher than the rest of the classroom. Why do teachers in Japan speak or teach from a stage?
They can look at everyone, all the child of the same.
Okay, they can look at everyone. What else?
Get the point of attention.
Point of attention. Okay. What else? This is really important because classrooms are not designed in the United States like this.
So I think key thing to keep in mind is that in a lot of these East Asian cultures, what you have is the teacher is seen as a major figure that has influence in the child's life. And so the purpose of having them on the stage is that, okay, the teacher's like high up, has a high status in society.
So a status. Okay, very good.
Show authority, I believe.
Very good. Show authority. Okay. Authority. What else? This is very important because, again, the very first question is, what is a foundational idea of Western civilization? That was the very first question that we talked about when we started. Now we're saying, how is teaching different in Japan? And a very, very visible way is the way the classroom is structured and how the teachers speak from a stage. And so what everyone has chimed in is that their ability to see everybody, that the teacher, if they're on a little bit higher than the rest of the classroom, they're the focal point of the attention. It's mentioned that the teacher's a major figure in those societies, and it also denotes status and it denotes authority. Like one of the things that you'll see in some of these societies is even when a person gets married, teachers will be invited. That's their level of status in the society. So we want to emphasize this point. And so how the classrooms are designed in Eastern culture, specifically in Japan in this case, as opposed to the United States, this factors into the process and how they are perceived, right? So now we go to this question. What is the primary message or theme of high school graduations here in the United States? So, you know, there is always a couple of guest speakers. The president of the Board of Education speaks, the principal speaks. Usually there's a couple of teachers who speak, and usually there's like one or two guest speakers, and then a couple of students speak. But what is the primary messages / themes of high school graduations in the United States? Any ideas? I'm sure people have attended high school graduations, right?
Achievement,
Okay.
achievement, recognition, a transition period, growing from
Okay.
one level to another.
Okay. Achievement, recognition, growing, and what else?
Is a gradual, you know, from different levels. So it's growing mainly.
Okay, growing. Anybody else? Because this is really critical now. This is where I'm trying to articulate an idea to the audience. So you've gone through kindergarten up to 12th grade. Now you're graduated. This is, you know, most people do get a high school education. It's a very formal event. And there's certain messaging that people hear at this high school graduation, irrespective of background, et cetera, et cetera. And so Sister Zara's mentioned its achievement, its recognition, and its growing. What else are some of the major messages and themes in high school graduations?
Selection of any major. How can you select any kind of major?
Okay, perhaps there's discussions on future careers, I guess, right? Academia, future careers. Okay.
Transition period.
It's a transition period. Okay.
The primary message is to pursue your dreams and do what you want.
Independent.
Exactly. Okay, so this is what I think where Uzair hit it. The primary message of all high school graduations is you are extraordinary and pursue your dreams and do what you want. That is a fundamental premise or idea of most high school graduations. I think I was maybe in middle school or ninth grade, and there was a graduation, and a couple of Muslim uncles had gone to it, and they came back and they were talking, and they were really disturbed because they said, okay, you know, we went to this graduation, and every speaker's coming there saying, do what you want, pursue your dreams. Nobody is saying, think about what the priest wants you to do. Think about what society needs. Consider what your parents' aspirations may be for you. Consider how you, and again, not that they don't, consider societal needs. The primary idea is pursue your dreams and do what you want. That is a primary message generally of high school graduations, and that you're extraordinary. And I think this was maybe 2011, an English teacher, I think it was in Massachusetts, actually gave a very unique commencement address. And in that commencement address, at that graduation, he actually said the exact opposite. He said there are 37,000 high schools in the United States. Even if you're the valedictorian in number one, there are 37,000 of you in this country. And there's nothing really extraordinary or special about you, even if you're the first person in the class. So I think when I'm speaking to parents that are even second generation immigrants, this is something I think sometimes they don't fully have wrapped their mind around. When the idea of the civilization is individual sovereignty, and I'm not passing a judgment on that idea. Listen, I've spoken on this in certain segments, even in ICW. The ideals of Western civilization are very noble ones. The rights of the individual, rule of law, equality of humanity, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to understand your child as they're going through the educational system, and as it climaxes at high school, the main theme is pursue your dreams. I think we were in a forum in which this question came up on one of the table topics, and I think it was Brother Riazi said, well, when it came to my career, my parents told me you're going to study computer science. That's not the case generally here in the United States. The primary message and theme of high school graduations is pursue your dreams. And you have to understand that fundamental idea if you're going to be able to effectively communicate with your children's teachers, because they're trained in a certain way. Their thinking is a certain way. And some of it is very good, because what are they also trying to do? They're trying to self-actualize the child. Right? Because each child is different. And that's the very big benefit here, as opposed to, again, I'm drawing the parallel to overseas, because many times overseas, the emphasis is on rote memorization. So I will move on here to what is the biggest, usually the biggest concern of a teacher when they request a meeting with a parent. This is where the teacher requests a meeting with a parent, not vice versa. What is the biggest concern of the teacher? And it doesn't have to be one, but what do you think? I mean, there are people on this, there are multiple people on this call who are accomplished, they're PhDs. So what is usually the biggest concern of a teacher when they have initiated a parent-teacher conference with a parent? Because usually, if the teacher has requested a parent-teacher conference, it's because the child is having some difficulty or there is some problem, right?
how to convey the message of the issue in a positive way.
Okay. Okay, very good. Convey message in a positive way, whatever the message is. What else?
Able to solve the problem and get some support from the parent.
Okay, solve problem and support from parent. Okay, very good, Sister Zahra. Because I mean, if we've interacted with teachers, we should have an idea of what their concern really is. And I'm not saying that what Sister Zahra has mentioned is not right. I want people to think critically so that we can be much more effective in this as a community than we currently are. What is their biggest concern?
I guess as well that the people could be, the teacher could be misunderstood of the message.
Can't hear you.
Someone was speaking, but I don't think I could hear them. Oh, okay. So someone has feedback. I'm not sure. Okay. So anybody have any idea on this? What is usually the biggest concern of a teacher when they request a meeting with a parent? Okay. So far, this is what we've come up with. Convey the message, solve the problem, and support the parent.
Able to come up with a solution.
Solution, okay.
Collaborate with the parent.
I think that as well, that it's a concern as well of being misunderstood by the parents, yeah.
Very good. Being misunderstood. That is very key. I think that was Brother Samir. Excellent. Okay. So this is always a big concern, especially when you're talking to people from different backgrounds, especially when their English may not be their first language. Being misunderstood is also a very, very big concern. Okay. What really frustrates teachers? What really frustrates a teacher?
Lack of attention, or, you know, parents is not really giving their full effort to help in a situation.
Okay, parent not giving full effort. Very good. Okay.
Not following the instructions of the teacher.
Okay, not following instructions. Very good.
When
Okay,
the
what
kids
else?
are talking.
I'm sorry?
When the kids are talking without permission.
Excellent, Akia. Yep. Kids talking. That really frustrates them. Okay. Not following instructions. Okay, what else? And this is a broad question. So think of it, one, what frustrates them in the classroom, what frustrates them with dealing with parents. Okay? Both. What frustrates teachers?
Personally, when I was teaching, that it is, I would say that it is, there's ton of time that is being spent, that it is to prepare for a class, to convey a message. And when you see that there's not that much appreciation for the kids, that it is for the students of what you are trying to convey to them, that it is, I am trying to benefit you and you are not listening. That it is just, this is, you know, that it is, that the message is not coming across about it. That is the value of what I'm trying to convey to them.
Excellent. Exactly. Lack of appreciation. And I would take that a little further. It's lack of appreciation by both the students and the parents in this case. So going back to this question, biggest concern of a teacher when they request a parent-teacher conference, it's usually because the teacher has a concern and they want to sit with the parent and try to devise a solution. And no matter how big the problem is, usually in more cases than not, their biggest concern is the parent going to challenge me or collaborate with me? Is a parent going to stick up for their child, or is a parent going to say, okay, I understand, you want me to help do this or pay closer attention to the homework or whatever it is, and I will try to do my part. So what frustrates teachers is the following. Okay, I have a mentor who was about 6 or 8 years older than me, and he went on to become a teacher in a public school system. And after he'd been teaching a couple of years, one time we had a very open discussion for a couple of hours. And he said, you know something, I said, I went into teaching. I was passionate about it. I wanted to get out of corporate America. And again, he wasn't that old. And he said, but this is what we deal with. What we have is we don't give birth to these kids. We don't control their diet. We don't control their sleep. We don't control their TV and social media engagement and toxicity. We don't control their domestic situation. I think 30% of households in the United States are single parent, of which 23 million children are single parent households. We don't control their manners. And what happens is then the child is put in our classroom. And when we request parent-teacher engagement, sometimes to get support from the parent to solve an issue which is critical to the child's future and their success, we are told, you're the professional, you figure it out. He said, we're told, you're the professional, you figure it out.
So lack of support from parents.
Lack of support from parents. Because there are very few people who have gotten into teaching to become rich. And so this is now, unfortunately, something that I think has also begun to creep into our community. That the support that we give to teachers is not nearly what it should be. Is not nearly what it should be. And what are we asking some of the teachers to do? The teachers aren't responsible for the junk food our kids eat. The teachers aren't responsible for the social media and being constantly plugged into electronic media. The teachers are the teacher's not responsible for the domestic situation that child is in, because in many cases, teachers have a lot of difficulty when the parents are separated to even get both parents together for a parent-teacher conference. It's not the teacher that's taught them bad manners or has taught them no manners. And so when a teacher requests a meeting, how should we understand it as parents? And I think everyone on the call that does know, has attended a couple of my sessions knows, I'm going to emphasize, or at least tell you what I think you need to hear, not what you want to hear. When a teacher is requesting a meeting with the parent, it should be seen as a cry for help and a cry for support. The last thing they want to hear from you is you're the professional, you figure it out. Because they're not controlling all of these other variables. And I just put some of them. We could actually just stay on this slide for another hour and talk about all things that parents affect that teachers don't, but then we want to dump it in the lap of the teacher. So I'm saying something provocative. Because someone has majored in education, has gotten a certification, has done these things, is in a structured environment with administration, et cetera, they can't solve all of the problems basically on their own. You can't punt your child into a classroom and expect a teacher to address all of the issues. You're a professional, you figure it out. So this is what we've come to. We've come to a time in which there's a lot outside the classroom the teacher cannot control. And we are in a situation where parents love to make demands of the teachers. Now, we should hold them to a standard, right? So I'm not saying let's let teachers not hold them to a standard. But before I hold any teacher to a standard, I should be asking myself, what am I doing to support the teacher and the school system and the administration? And when I can intelligently answer that question, then I have the right to say, teacher, I think that you may not be fulfilling your obligation. I came to the States, started, I think I was for a couple of months kindergarten or first grade. There's only one teacher, I think, in all of my educational experience that I thought was maybe not a good teacher. All of them were just not, it was just whether they were good, very good, or excellent. And this goes to our tradition, to our culture, and what I'm seeing more and more, I'm seeing parents deviate from it. Like something small, a parent is talking, if your child is supposed to be at school at 8:15 and they're not there by whatever, I think 8:20, there's a call that comes to your house to check on why you didn't call the school to let them know your child was sick. Parents get that call and they actually get annoyed. Why are you bothering me? Well, they're calling because they want to make sure your child wasn't kidnapped on the way to school. That's why they're calling. They're calling for the safety of your child. And explain to me why you're told when the school year starts if your child at this age and they're not going to come into school to let the school know. And we're dealing in a time in which the school is looking out for your child's safety and you're going to have an attitude and be annoyed at them. Then why did they call you? How far this is from what is considered proper behavior, even between adults, let alone adults that have an iman or a trust for your children. So I've listed 5 things here. Of the items listed, which is the best predictor of long-term success for a child in 7th and 8th grade? Good grades, having and making friends, sports and extracurricular activities, emotional stability, and self-control. So there are multiple studies that if you look at a child in 7th and 8th grade, some children and of these 5, which one is the one to indicate the most likelihood of long-term success? Any ideas of the 5? I would take a survey, but does anyone think it's grades? Grades are the best predictor of long-term success into young adulthood and adulthood. Okay.
I guess I don't think that there is no question except other than emotional stability.
Very good. Okay. So Brother Samir did that. So it's actually self-control. Self-control. Your ability to say no. If you have self-control, then you're less likely to engage in risky behavior. If you have self-control, you're less likely to get into addiction. And this is very important because now I think I am on my last 10 minutes. We have to ask ourselves again as a community, what do we emphasize? We emphasize grades. And let's be honest. And again, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. As long as my child gets into medical school, everything else is going to be okay. No, it's not. Self-control. And what is a fundamental idea of religion? Not just believing in God. The fundamental idea of all religion is self-control and the moral constraints required by religion. Again, let me repeat that. Religion fundamentally requires moral constraints. Even biological and physiological needs are addressed within a framework and a moral constraint. So when we're engaging with our child, and the biggest concern a teacher has when they are request a meeting with the parent is this the parent going to actually support me or challenge me? And what is the worst thing that you can do to the teacher is challenge the teacher in front of your own child, even if you feel that the teacher is wrong. If you do have questions for the thing where you feel the teacher needs to be challenged, make sure your child is not in the room. The high school coach understands this. You talk to any high school sports coach, what does he say about his captains? He said, when the captain tells you to do something, It's as if I'm telling you to do something. So whatever the captain asks you to do, you go do. And if you feel the captain asks you to do something you should not have done, then you come and tell me, and then I will address it with that captain. Now we're living in a time where parents, because our children are so extraordinarily special, and I'm not saying it's all of us, I'm talking in general terms, we feel we can challenge a teacher in front of our fourth grade child. When the scientific data proves the metric to show the most likelihood of success is self-control. And one of the things is self-control, even in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, is the parent knows. The child should know. As a general rule, mom and dad, they're going to support the teacher, even if I feel that they've done something wrong. And that teaches you self-control. That teaches you to suck it up and do what the teacher requires, even though you may feel it may not be the best thing. So the biggest predictor of long-term success, even into adulthood and middle age and later age, is self-control. How are we going to teach self-control to our children when my child knows dad is going to go talk and he's going to challenge a vice principal and the teacher on my behalf?
Question, Brother Assad, you don't see that it is emotional stability crossing over with self-control, that if somebody just like, that is, have that, that total understanding is just like that.
No, that's an excellent point, Brother Samir. See, even myself, originally, I thought it was emotional stability, that you are on the outside, but you're on the inside. There's consistency. You're not bipolar, right? But the thing is, I can send you the study, and they're very closely linked, right? But the thing is, when they say self-control, again, we're talking about children in middle school, that they're less prone to fall into peer pressure traps, right?
You got it, yeah.
Exactly. And so it's self-control. And so identity, if you take the word identity, now whether it's Muslim identity or American identity or any identity, which word is very close to identity? Confidence. Confidence is fundamentally very closely linked to identity. And that's why when people are talking about establishing a Muslim identity, et cetera, in different countries, if the child doesn't have confidence, the child will not have the identity that you think they should have. And because they've memorized some holy book or some verses, it's not sufficient. Identity is very closely linked to confidence. Confidence is having a certain amount of certainty on who you are. And that also ties to what? Self-control. Self-control. You can't have a Muslim identity if you lack confidence. Not in the modern industrial West. So I want to emphasize self-control. So it's very important to teach your child self-control. And that doesn't mean be oppressive, because we do have those crazy cases also, which are very unfortunate. But it is self-control. And so I put here, should support be unconditional? As far as the child should understand it, they should understand my parents are going to unconditionally support the teacher. And if there's an issue of concern, those conversations can be had. But the child should not know about those conversations. A 9-year-old is not equipped to decide on how well qualified a teacher is. Something I've learned, if I have any type of interaction, the children will know just come on the assumption that dad is going to support the teacher. And this doesn't just go for public schools. Support should be unconditional. Okay. So I put this here about student willingness, academic achievement, teacher excellence. Again, we want to ask about teacher excellence, but this is where, before I start asking about teacher excellence, I need to ask about parent excellence. And very simple, a child whose parents have supported teachers, that child will be a better performer even at an odd job. Why? Because even to succeed at an odd job, you need some level of discipline and self-control. One of the reasons, why do we fast? Self-control, discipline, stay away from food and water. It's not a ritual. One of the fundamental ideas of fasting is to stay away from which is not just lawful, but actually required to survive. And you can stay away from it for a period of time. I remember talking to a very senior executive. I was fasting, so I went to lunch with him, but I didn't eat. And then naturally his question was, well, do kids fast? And I said, yeah, depending on their age. And then he said, you know what, that's an interesting idea. I wonder if I can keep my children out of the kitchen for 3 hours. And his children were teenagers. The idea that you could keep your 14, 15, 16-year-old kid out of the kitchen for 3 hours was incomprehensible to him. But he said, that's an interesting idea. Self-control, that's why we fast. We don't fast so you don't eat all day and then you have about an 8-course meal at night. We fast for self-control. The oldest of all religious tradition is what? Fasting. Adam and Eve are told to what? Don't eat off the tree. It's the only religious injunction. Why? Self-control. Self-control. So the prophet cared for teachers and showed their elevated standing. Once he passed 2 circles of people, the first was supplicating the other, and the other listened to the teacher. And even the prophet said, I've been sent as a teacher, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The status of teachers. The status of teachers. Okay, the right of the instructor. Imam Zainul Abidin's quote. This is very key. The right of your instructor is dignifying him and committing to Solomon in their classes and good listening and attending. You should provide for your instructor with mental presence and conceptual attendance, heart retaining, okay? The way of these is laxness and desires and confinement of lust. You must understand that you are the recipient or emissary of what you have been received, and to the ignorant you may meet. You should convey properly and never breach the mission if you should perform. I'm not going to sit and talk against internet learning, but even the body language of a student sitting in front of a teacher matters. You sit in front of your teacher in a dignified way. Okay. And this is a hadith of the Prophet. Teachers, if they have 3 students of different social classes and they don't treat them equally, will be in the line of traitors on the day of judgment. And in the United States, the great equalizer is public education. That's a whole nother discussion in itself, how public education is now under attack in the United States by the charter school system, which is beyond the scope of this discussion. But what I want to emphasize is when we engage with our teachers, they should be happy to see us. We should know how to send a thank you email. We should know how to do these things. We should be able to, they should be able to know if I have a problem with so-and-so, I'm going to get the support I need from that child's parents. Their biggest concern, I remember one time a principal saying it right in front of me. He was really upset at a child, and he said point blank, he said, you know, Florio, I call your mother in, and whenever she comes in, she sticks up for you all the time. And because I was a crossing guard. It's the only reason I heard this conversation. And we're not going to go into the crazy stories of someone breaching a trust and having relationships with students. The vast majority of teachers are consummate professionals, and they deserve our support. And having an adversarial relationship or an arm's length relationship really diminishes the ability of you to work in collaboration with the teacher to optimize the educational opportunities for your child. So I think I have a couple of more minutes. Are there any questions that I can answer? Because I knew I threw a lot there. I started with the idea of individual sovereignty because that's a big part of it. Some of us are trying to view this based on the cultures that we come from, and we should not, because there's going to then be an inevitable disconnect. Okay, so any questions or comments at all? Okay, there's a lot of silence, so everybody, I mean, usually these talks are very engaging. Today I was a little surprised that people weren't as engaged. Okay, so I turn it back to you, Riaz. Okay, inshallah. So thank you for everyone's attention. And I think Sister Asma put, I think self-control is basically controlling your nafs. Exactly. So the biggest likelihood of success is teaching your child to control his or her nafs. And one of the ways to do that is to show unconditional support for the teacher. And that's not to say they're not legitimate issues, but I can't emphasize this enough because I see ourselves actually challenging teachers and administrations. And the inevitable result is you're putting roadblocks or diminishing the likelihood of your child's long-term success. If your child thinks he should have gotten an A- and got a B+, it's better for them to accept failure now than you to try to pressure a teacher or administration for extra credit work so that they can get an A-.